My beloved brothers and sisters, start your morning in God's presence, and you will find that every sunrise becomes a personal invitation from heaven. When the first light touches the earth, it's as if God whispers, "Come walk with me today." The world rushes into noise, but those who pause to meet the Lord in the quiet hours carry a calm that nothing can steal. You see, victory does not begin at the battlefield of noon. It begins in the secret place of the morning. When you kneel before God, you stand tall before men. When your heart opens to His Spirit, your day becomes a partnership with His power. Many people wake up to worry, to schedules, to endless messages, but those who rise to pray rise above the noise. The presence of God is not a feeling that fades, it is a fountain that flows. When you start the day saying, "Holy Spirit, lead me," you step into divine rhythm. Your thoughts align with heaven, your words gain power, and your heart beats with peace. You no longer react to problems, you respond with faith. The morning spent in prayer is never wasted time. It is an investment that yields strength, wisdom, and direction for every moment ahead. The morning decides the atmosphere of your entire day. When you open your eyes at dawn, the first thoughts that enter your mind have the power to shape everything that follows. If you begin your day anxious, rushed, or distracted, that same energy follows you into every conversation, every task, and every decision. But if you begin your day centered in the presence of God, your heart finds peace before the world even begins to move. The first breath you take in prayer sets the rhythm for the day. It is in that sacred stillness, before the noise, before the plans, that God whispers guidance into your spirit. The atmosphere of heaven becomes the atmosphere of your morning, and what you carry from that moment will overflow into the hours ahead. Many people underestimate the divine power of their mornings. They think of it as just another routine, something to get through before real life begins. But the truth is, mornings are holy opportunities, moments of fresh beginnings and divine reset. When you start your day without God, the day pulls you in every direction. But when you start it with Him, your mind is renewed, your emotions are balanced, and your spirit becomes strong. The peace that flows from God's presence is not a fragile peace that breaks under pressure. It's the kind that anchors you when storms rise. You may face the same challenges, but you won't face them with the same heart. Your reactions change, your decisions become wiser, and your confidence deepens because you know that you began the day walking hand in hand with the Almighty. The morning is the moment of surrender. It's when you say, "Lord, I give you this day before it begins." It's not about long words or perfect prayers. It's about posture, a heart turned toward heaven. When you rise before the world rises, you find clarity that others miss. The noise of life fades, and the voice of God grows clear. You begin to sense His direction, His warning, and His encouragement for what lies ahead. This spiritual alignment is what decides the atmosphere you carry. The person who begins their day with gratitude and trust walks in peace, no matter what comes. The one who starts in panic starts already defeated. You cannot control what happens outside, but you can choose the state of your soul inside. Think of a musician tuning his instrument before a performance. Without tuning, the melody will always sound off key, no matter how skilled the player is. In the same way, the morning is when you tune your heart to heaven's frequency. You bring your emotions, your plans, your dreams, and your fears before God, and you allow Him to adjust what is out of rhythm. Once your soul is tuned, everything else aligns. The frustrations that would normally upset you no longer have power over you. The setbacks that would once discourage you now become reminders to trust deeper. Every step of your day moves to the music of divine peace. There is a spiritual law in this: the atmosphere you create in the morning follows you like a fragrance. When your morning begins with worry, that scent follows you everywhere. But when your morning begins with worship, you carry the fragrance of heaven into every space you enter. People may not know what changed, but they will feel it. You become calmer, wiser, and more gracious. You begin to notice opportunities instead of obstacles, and blessings instead of burdens. The morning decides the atmosphere of your day because it decides the posture of your soul. Before the world has a chance to speak confusion into you, let God speak peace into you. Before the demands of life take your attention, give your attention to the giver of life. If you begin your day in His presence, no matter what storms may come, You will move through them with calm assurance, because your atmosphere has already been set by the Spirit of God. Meeting God early releases peace and direction. When you seek Him before the noise of the world rises, you step into a sacred exchange, your worries for His wisdom, your restlessness for His rest. The early hours are not just another part of the day, they are heaven's quiet invitation to align your spirit with divine purpose. When the mind is still and the heart is open, the presence of God begins to speak in ways that guide, comfort, and strengthen. Peace doesn't come from a perfect day, it comes from knowing who holds the day. And when you meet Him first, everything else falls into order. The peace that flows from meeting God early is not the shallow calm that disappears when life becomes difficult. It is deep, steady, and alive. It becomes the anchor that holds you when the waves of the day begin to rise. When you start your morning in His presence, your inner world is secured before the outer world starts to move. You carry a silence that is stronger than chaos, and a confidence that is not built on circumstances but on communion. This peace does not mean the absence of trouble. It means the assurance that God is already there when trouble comes. It is the kind of peace that walks with you through noise, conflict, and pressure, yet keeps your heart still. Direction is the second gift that comes from meeting God early. When you give Him your first moments, you give Him permission to lead your steps. Decisions that seemed confusing become clear. Paths that looked uncertain become illuminated by quiet conviction. Sometimes the Holy Spirit doesn't shout instructions. He whispers impressions, subtle but sure. In those early hours of stillness, your spiritual hearing is most sensitive. The distractions of the day haven't yet built their walls around your attention. God begins to shape your thoughts, rearrange your priorities, and breathe fresh insight into your plans. You begin to see not just what is good, but what is right. So many people move through life reactive, responding to problems, making choices in haste, chasing things that drain them. But those who meet God early learn to live proactive lives, guided by peace instead of pressure. They don't just move because of opportunity, they move because of direction. They don't just survive the day, they shape it through divine alignment. Meeting God in the morning becomes like receiving the blueprint for the day ahead. You no longer wonder which way to go, because peace becomes the compass of your spirit. You sense when to wait, when to move, when to speak, and when to stay silent. When you spend time with God first, the rest of the day cannot easily take you off balance. Problems lose their power to intimidate you because you've already met the one who controls all things. You find yourself less reactive to negativity, less fearful of the unknown, and more aware of God's hand in everything. That awareness itself brings calm. It's like walking with quiet assurance that someone greater has already gone before you to prepare the way. Even if the day unfolds differently than you planned, you move with steady faith because your direction came from peace, not pressure. Meeting God early is not about a ritual. It's about relationship. It's about saying, Lord, before I talk to anyone else, I want to hear your voice. It's giving Him the first portion of your time, not because He demands it, but because you recognize its power. Each morning becomes a sacred meeting where heaven's peace flows into your soul and heaven's direction aligns your path. As that habit deepens, you realize that every victory of the day began in that quiet encounter. When you meet God early, peace becomes your armor and direction becomes your compass, and you walk through the day knowing you are exactly where you're meant to be. The presence of God strengthens your spirit before challenges appear. Every new day carries unknown tests, some seen, many unseen. But when you begin your day in the company of the Almighty, you are fortified from within. Before problems can touch your peace, His presence surrounds you like armor. You may not know what the day will bring, but God does. He prepares your heart in advance for every encounter, every trial, every surprise. The time you spend with Him early is not wasted devotion, it is divine preparation. When your spirit is filled, no emptiness from the world can overwhelm you. His presence becomes your quiet confidence, your invisible strength, your hidden power that no storm can erase. In the natural world, people prepare for challenges by gathering tools, strategies, and plans. But in the spiritual realm, strength begins in surrender. When you kneel before God at dawn, you receive something the world cannot give: inner stability. Life may bring sudden winds of disappointment or frustration, but the one who has met God before those winds rise remains unshaken. His Spirit breathes courage into you, His peace steadies your emotions, and His word sharpens your discernment. The challenges that would have drained you now become opportunities for faith to speak louder than fear. His presence does not remove all battles, but it equips you to win them with grace and wisdom. There is something supernatural that happens when you invite God into your morning. You exchange your weakness for His strength. You might wake up tired, uncertain, or burdened, but as you begin to worship and pray, your spirit revives. It's as if heaven's light pierces through the clouds within you. The burdens that once felt heavy begin to feel lighter because you are no longer carrying them alone. The Holy Spirit doesn't just comfort you, He energizes you. He gives you endurance beyond your natural limits, patience beyond your temperament, and peace beyond your understanding. You become strong not because life is easy, but because God's presence within you makes you resilient. When you carry His presence, your reactions change. Where others respond to problems with anger or panic, you respond with calm and faith. You begin to see problems not as interruptions, but as instruments, tools God uses to refine and strengthen you. Every difficulty becomes a doorway to deeper trust. And because your spirit is already anchored in His presence, nothing external can easily pull you into chaos. You face challenges from a higher place, not beneath them. You are no longer tossed by circumstances. You command them with prayer. That inner strength doesn't shout, it stands. It stands quietly, firmly, unshaken, because it is built on communion with God, not on confidence in self. There is a divine mystery in how the presence of God works. Sometimes He doesn't remove the obstacle, but gives you strength greater than the obstacle. Sometimes He doesn't silence the storm, but gives you peace that outlasts it. This is the secret of spiritual endurance, being filled before you are tested. When your spirit is full, you don't crumble under pressure, you shine in it. The fire of adversity cannot burn a soul soaked in God's presence. Like gold refined in heat, your faith becomes purer and your vision clearer. Think of it like a soldier going into battle. Without armor, he is vulnerable. With it, he is secure. God's presence is that armor, unseen but unbreakable. It protects your mind from anxiety, your heart from bitterness, and your spirit from defeat. Each morning you meet Him, He clothes you anew in strength and wisdom. You step out not merely ready for success, but ready for surrender, ready to let God work through you, not just for you. And when challenges come, they no longer intimidate you, they remind you of the one who walks with you. The presence of God does more than prepare you for the day. It transforms how you live the day. You move from striving to resting, from fear to faith, from reaction to revelation. You no longer measure strength by your capacity, but by His. And when the evening comes, you look back not with exhaustion, but with quiet gratitude, knowing that you didn't survive the day, you conquered it through grace. So meet Him early, dwell with Him deeply, and walk with Him continually. When His presence strengthens your spirit, no challenge can weaken your soul, and every day ends in quiet victory. Faith at sunrise leads to victory at sunset. When the first light of morning breaks through the darkness, it is not just the beginning of a new day, it is the beginning of new possibilities for those who believe. Faith planted early in the day becomes the unseen force that carries you through every moment that follows. When you wake and declare your trust in God before anything else, you hand Him the steering wheel of your day. You acknowledge that He is in control, that His wisdom will guide you, and that His love will protect you. That act of early faith sets the tone for everything that unfolds, turning ordinary hours into opportunities for divine encounters. Faith in the morning is like sowing seeds into fertile soil. The soil is fresh, the spirit is open, and heaven is listening. What you plant in faith before the world distracts you begins to grow quietly beneath the surface of your day. You may not see it immediately, but begins to shape outcomes, influence conversations, and open unexpected doors. Faith doesn't need to see to believe, it believes to see. When you begin with belief, you end with breakthrough. That is why the faithful learn to speak victory even before the battle begins. They don't wait for circumstances to confirm what God has already promised. They walk as if it's already done. When you start your morning with faith, you begin from a place of victory, not striving. You don't need to spend the rest of your day fighting for peace, because peace already lives within you. Faith gives you perspective. When problems arise, you no longer ask, "Why me?" but instead declare, "Even this will work for my good." The strength of your morning faith determines the stability of your evening victory. Life's battles often come unexpectedly, but the person who has armed their heart with faith before the fight never faces defeat unprepared. They have already built an altar in their spirit where trust outweighs fear. Faith at sunrise also activates divine favor. It invites heaven's partnership into your earthly work. The same hands that fold in prayer in the morning begin to move with grace and wisdom throughout the day. Faith keeps you sensitive to God's timing and direction. You may find yourself taking steps you didn't plan, meeting people you didn't expect, and discovering blessings you never imagined, all because faith led the way. Where faith walks first, miracles follow. Even the smallest act of belief at the start of the day can multiply into unexpected victories by its end. Sometimes victory doesn't mean everything went perfectly. It means you finished the day still trusting, still grateful, still standing strong. That kind of victory is born from morning faith. Faith shapes the way you think, speak, and respond. When others panic, faith steadies you. When doors close, faith reminds you that God opens better ones. When prayers seem unanswered, faith whispers, "Keep walking, the answer is coming." That confidence doesn't appear suddenly. It grows from daily discipline, from choosing each morning to believe again. Every sunrise gives you the chance to reset your faith. It is God's way of saying, "Yesterday is gone, let's begin again." And when you take that invitation seriously, when you start the day by saying, "Lord, I trust you completely," you disarm fear before it ever speaks. You set your soul in alignment with victory before challenges even appear. Faith at sunrise prepares you for every sunset because it allows you to live with assurance that God has already written a victorious ending. So let your first words each morning be words of faith, and your last breath each evening be one of gratitude. Those who begin believing never end defeated. Prayer transforms ordinary days into divine journeys. It takes what is common and fills it with the uncommon presence of God. When you pray, you are not simply speaking words into the air. You are opening a channel between heaven and your heart. Each prayer invites divine purpose into your schedule, turning the routine into something sacred. Without prayer, days can feel heavy, repetitive, and directionless. But when you begin your morning by speaking with God, even simple moments become meaningful. The same path you walk every day suddenly feels guided. The same tasks you've done 100 times carry a new sense of joy because now they are shared with Him. Prayer doesn't remove the ordinary, it transforms it. Every person faces days that seem repetitive, where nothing extraordinary seems to happen. But prayer brings light into those shadows. When you pause to speak with God, the atmosphere around you changes. The Spirit breathes freshness into what felt dull and gives strength where there was fatigue. The burden of responsibility becomes lighter because prayer transfers weight from your shoulders to His. It's not just communication, it's communion. You begin to sense that you are not walking alone. Every conversation, every challenge, every decision becomes part of a divine story being written through you. The road you walk stops being random, it becomes a journey of purpose. Prayer also transforms your perspective. It doesn't always change the situation immediately, but it always changes how you see it. Through prayer, you begin to recognize that interruptions are invitations, disappointments are redirections, and delays are divine timing. When you live prayerfully, you learn to see God in places others overlook. The detour becomes a teaching moment, the pain becomes a lesson, and the silence becomes an opportunity to grow in trust. The one who prays learns to live with eyes wide open, aware that God is moving even when it doesn't feel like it. The more you pray, the more you realize that the extraordinary has always been hidden inside the ordinary, waiting for you to notice it through faith. Prayer also transforms the condition of your heart. A day without prayer can easily be overtaken by impatience, frustration, or fear. But prayer cleanses those emotions before they grow roots. When you pray, you exchange heaviness for hope. You pour out your worries and receive back His peace. You might start your morning anxious, but you'll end your prayer renewed. The simple act of speaking to God brings stability to your soul. And as that stability grows, your relationships, your work, and your attitude begin to reflect it. Prayer becomes like oxygen. You may not always see its effect, but without it, you suffocate spiritually. Those who walk closely with God know that prayer is not an event, it's a lifestyle. It doesn't have to be loud or long, it just has to be sincere. Whispering a prayer before a meeting, thanking Him in the middle of traffic, or seeking His guidance in silence, all of these moments build a living relationship. Each prayer plants a seed of divine involvement in your day. Over time, those seeds grow into testimonies, stories of how God guided, protected, and provided in ways you couldn't have orchestrated on your own. The most powerful thing about prayer is that it connects the temporary with the eternal. It invites heaven to touch earth and reminds you that every step you take matters in the grand design of God's plan. Through prayer, the ordinary becomes miraculous because it is filled with divine awareness. Life becomes less about getting through the day and more about walking with God through every hour of it. Prayer transforms the mundane into the meaningful and the busy into the beautiful. When you live this way, every sunrise feels like a new invitation, and every sunset feels like a gentle reminder that you walk the day with the Creator of all things. And every evening, by returning thanks to the One who guided you through, when the day quiets and the noise begins to fade, there is something sacred about pausing to look back and acknowledge the hand of God in every hour that has passed. Gratitude is not just a polite expression, it is a spiritual posture, a declaration that you recognize the faithfulness of God in the small and great moments alike. Ending your day with thanksgiving closes the circle of divine fellowship that began in the morning. You started with God's presence, now you rest in His peace. Gratitude becomes the bridge that carries you from effort into rest, from doing into trusting. When you take a moment to thank God at the end of the day, you give meaning to everything that happened, both the victories and the struggles. The heart that thanks God even for difficulties is the heart that truly understands faith. Because gratitude says, Lord, even if I didn't understand it all, I trust that you were working in it. Every closed door, every delay, every challenge can be seen differently when viewed through the lens of gratitude. Instead of frustration, you find perspective. Instead of weariness, you find renewal. Gratitude doesn't erase pain, but it transforms it into wisdom. Each evening is an invitation to reflect, not to regret. When you end your day with thanks, you train your spirit to see God's fingerprints in the details you might have missed in the moment. That conversation that lifted your mood, that unexpected act of kindness, that moment of strength when you wanted to give up, all of them become clear reminders of His presence. Gratitude is like light. It reveals what darkness hides. It helps you see not only what happened, but how God carried you through it. You begin to realize that even on hard days, you were never walking alone. Ending your day with thanksgiving also prepares your heart for rest. A thankful soul sleeps in peace because it has surrendered control back to God. You don't go to bed with anxiety about tomorrow when you've already placed today in His hands. Gratitude releases the mind from the weight of what went wrong and focuses it on what went right. You remember the answered prayers, the moments of protection you didn't notice, and the quiet strength that got you through. That awareness soothes the heart like a lullaby of faith. Sleep becomes more than physical rest. It becomes spiritual renewal. There's also power in thanking God for what you haven't seen yet. Gratitude for future blessings is a statement of trust. It says, Lord, I believe you're still working even in the unseen. That kind of faith-filled thanksgiving draws divine favor because it shows you believe in His goodness beyond your circumstances. When you end your day this way, you don't just close your eyes in rest, you open your heart in expectation. The next morning becomes easier to face because your night was spent anchored in peace. As the day fades, gratitude transforms the ordinary moments into holy memories. The laughter, the lessons, the quiet prayers, all gather in your heart as a testimony of God's faithfulness. You realize that victory isn't only in the success of the day, but in the awareness that you walked with Him through it all. Gratitude turns your evening into worship, your rest into renewal, and your heart into a sanctuary. When you end every day by returning thanks to God, you prepare your soul to rise again with joy and faith. Each sunset becomes a soft reminder that His mercy carried you today, and His grace will meet you again in the morning. Thank you, everyone.